Celebrating the written word, this is The County Writes, The County Reads, with Lynn Pickering on 99.3 County FM.
Welcome to the show. February 1st is the start of Black History Month. And today on The County Writes, The County Reads, we'll learn about men and women who blazed a trail for others. Later, you'll hear my interview with Mayanne Francis. Mayanne was the first Black person to be appointed Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia. In addition to her memoir, Mayanne Francis, An Honorable Life, she has also written 2 children's books. But up first, I'm joined by Barbara Yebuga, a keynote speaker, a workshop facilitator, and author. Welcome to The County Writes, The County Reads, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Such a pleasure to chat with you today.
Well, the theme for Black History Month 2026 is 30 Years of Black History Month, honoring Black brilliance across generations, from nation builders to tomorrow's visionaries. And Barbara, that really ties in with your book, Trailblazers in Canada. You write of men and women who have led the way for others, and I thought we'd begin there. Let's start with Thornton and Lucy Blackburn. Their story begins in the 1800s.
Yes, that's correct. Lucy and Thornton Blackburn, they are, to be honest with you, Lynn, their story initially resonated with me because I love story. They were a man and a woman that were so deeply in love, and their journey from enslavement in the southern part of the United States and coming up to what was known as Upper Canada, Ontario. It was quite a journey, and it was just such a testament to the power of love. So that was initially what attracted me to their story. But ultimately, they are known for creating the first taxi service in Toronto. It was called the City at the time. And it all came from Thornton. He worked in Toronto, downtown Toronto. At that time, it was called York. And York, aka Toronto, its nickname was Muddy York because the roads were unpaved. It was really mucky, and it was hard to transport yourself from place to place. And so he had this idea, let's create a taxi service that is affordable for your common folk to get to and from places. And so that's what he did with his wife. They created this taxi service. And I tell students often, before there was an Uber, you had the Blackburns who created this transportation service. And what they did with the success of this business, of this innovative idea of creating this transportation service, it opened up so many opportunities for them, of course, because they didn't have a lot of money. They just came pretty much with the clothes on their back, but they became quite successful, and they created so many opportunities for the community. They contributed to community centers and churches. They're actually responsible for one of the oldest churches in Toronto, known as the Trinity Anglican Church. And so they're an example for me of what can happen when you have an idea and when you think of how can I serve people? What is a need in my community that I can, help fill in that gap? And so they did just that. And I stay in awe of them because their dream for themselves and their hope for themselves surpassed what their circumstances were showing for them. And so, yes, the Blackburns remain to be a really important part of our history, not just Black history. They also were a result of Canada's first archaeology dig of the Underground Railroad up here. So again, like I said, they opened up a lot of opportunities once they made that move and created the business that they created.
And let's just go back to the beginning, because they had a very, very difficult time making it into what was Upper Canada at that time, because they were enslaved.
Yes. Of course, the idea of being enslaved was it's hard to even wrap my head around it, understanding what being enslaved actually means. And they were separated at one point. Another enslaver purchased Lucy, and so Lucy and Thornton were separated, and they were able to come back together and in the middle of the night, escape, essentially, and make this very dangerous trip. And that's one thing about talking about these trailblazers, these folks that did unthinkable things. It wasn't just that they were innovators and they made something out of nothing. A lot of times it was really risky. They literally risked their lives. I always try to emphasize that and shed a light on that. I think today it's a lot easier for a lot of us to pursue our dreams and ambitions. Back then it was literally life or death.
Yes, and it almost impossible.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Violet King.
Yes.
Now, I had not heard of Violet King, but she's an amazing woman. And just talk a little bit about her and her accomplishments.
So Violet King, she became the first Black woman in Canada to become a lawyer, and a criminal lawyer at that, which was quite controversial. But her belief was everyone needs to be protected. Everyone deserves their fair day in court and to be respected. And so she was someone who was a go-getter. There's a famous quote of hers. She said, "People told me it wasn't a good idea to be a lawyer, particularly a colored girl. So I went ahead and did it anyway." And I love it. I love it. I said, yes, Violet King, that's my kind of woman. You know, she had a lot going against her while she was raised in a stable home, and they were more or less well off as far as middle class comfortable. She still wasn't rich. You know, she had to make ways for her to get to the dreams that she aspired for herself. And she had to face sexism and racism. And it, like her quote kind of shows, it wasn't a great idea. People weren't encouraging her to pursue this career choice, but she did. And she went on to do many other things outside of being the first Black woman criminal lawyer in Canada. And she became kind of this leader in the corporate world, not only in Canada, but also in the States. And in the story I write about her, you see how she becomes a mother and how she navigates being a mother while also, pursuing her ambitions when it comes to her career. She was a huge advocate on helping newcomers that were coming to Canada find a job, to feel welcome. She worked with the government and other top community organizations like the YMCA to help immigrants and refugees as well find jobs and ensure that they were treated fairly. That was big for her, that all humans deserve to be treated fairly and deserve to be represented properly when it comes to the criminal system.
And the very sad thing is that she died at a very young age, at 52. But within her life, she accomplished so much.
She accomplished so much. And one thing that I've read, of course, while writing the book, I did a lot of research and articles on her, and there's quite the debate as far as her untimely death and her dying so young, and whether or not her ambition and the pressure that comes, again, with these accomplishments. It's really nice to celebrate them and sing about all that they've accomplished, but the sacrifice was very real, and especially her being a mother and how she's showing up for her daughter. And it's been said that it could be attributed to the pressure she was under in pursuit of her career ambitions.
Well, let's talk then about Mifflin Gibbs.
Mifflin Gibbs, this was someone I was very excited to write about and learn about, because before taking on writing this book, this collection of short stories of these amazing trailblazers, I didn't know about him. And so learning that he was the first Black person elected in British Columbia, and that was in 1866. He was someone who believed that if we wanted to see change, we had to roll up our sleeves and do something about it. So he was that guy going door to door, knocking on people's doors, explaining to them the process of voting and why their voice matters and how the system works as far as everyday people using their voice and their vote to bring about change. One thing about Mifflin Gibbs that I appreciated is he loved to read. He loved education. Unfortunately, during those times, it was very common for young folks to have to drop out of school and work to support their family. So again, he, wasn't well off. His family wasn't well off. And at a young age, he had to drop out of school and start to work. But he didn't let that stop him. He was a very passionate reader. So he ultimately was self-taught. He was self-educated by just reading. And I find that so very inspiring, because I think we can always find a reasons to block or stop our pursuit of what we want for ourselves and our pursuit of goals and our aspirations. And Mr. Gibbs did not allow that. He found his way to go after his dream no matter what. And he was also a very smart businessman, and he actually got to a level where he was in competition with, our beloved Hudson Bay Company, which I found very, very, very impressive.
Yeah.
So I love that he was someone for the people. He understood the system as far as how we elect our leaders, and he also was very business savvy. And again, someone who had very little formal education, but did not allow that to stop him from pursuing what he wanted to accomplish in his life.
And I was very surprised to read, Barbara, that Mifflin is still remembered for his many achievements. Every year on November 19th, the city of Victoria celebrates Mifflin with Star Gibbs Day. The Government of Canada has recognized Mifflin as a person of national historic significance. So this is what Black History Month is all about, learning all about these people and what they've accomplished. You, Barbara, are a bit of a trailblazer yourself. Let's talk about you. Where did you grow up, and what did you experience growing up as a young Black woman?
So I was born in Toronto, downtown Toronto, Mount Sinai Hospital, and I lived in downtown Toronto for the first 5-6 years of my life before moving out to Mississauga. And at that time, in the early 90s, late 80s, it was Mississauga wasn't the Mississauga that is today. It was dirt roads. You didn't have a house number. It was a lot number. It was very different. And so growing up, as far as for myself and as a Black little girl and then growing into a Black teenager and ultimately woman, going through the school system, I noticed that there were gaps. I always wondered why, there were certain things that we didn't learn about. Both my parents were educators, so school was never off for us. There was our school during the day at our physical school, and then we'd come home and we kind of have our homeschooling around the dinner table with our parents. And I just wonder why there's certain things that we didn't learn about in the school system. I write about Alan Emtage, and he's an individual, a trailblazer when it comes to technology. He created the first search engine. So we wouldn't have Google if it wasn't for this individual. Ask myself, why do we know about, Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates and the Mark Zuckerbergs, but I've never heard of this man who created our search engines, right? So those were questions that I was always curious as a little girl growing up, and I loved to read and I loved learning. And so I think that it was a natural progression for me to end up where I am as an educator, as someone who's passionate about learning and development and sharing stories that have been buried.
Yeah. Did you face racism? Because we like to think in Canada that we're not racist. There are not racist individuals, but clearly there are.
Yeah, there are. I mean, because of how I was raised, my parents always, taught me and instilled in me that the opinions of other people, that's none of my business. Those are none of my business, and I'm to focus on what I want to achieve and the human that I am. So I think because of that, I may have been either naive, maybe, or just blinded to what I may have been experienced as racism just because my parents, again, how they raised me. But yes, Lynn, I would not deny that racism, it very much, it exists in Canada. I know there's a lot of talk of what happens south of the border, but Canada is not, we're not innocent of having racism. One thing that my father always taught me was to be hard on problems, but soft on people. And that has always been my kind of northern star. I recall very early in my career, a leader that I worked with had a view that would be a definition of racism. And I was so appalled by this leader's view that was clearly racism. And when I talked to her, she said to me, well, Barbara, that was what I was taught. I was taught that Black people are inferior to my race. She happened to be white. And for me, that the light bulb went off where I realized that sometimes people are racist and they don't even realize it. They're taught that as fact, as truth. And that's also why I got into education. We don't know what we don't know until we know it. And so again, it leads back to the work that I do as far as education. I feel that is the most powerful tool. And a lot of us suffer. Racism is ignorance executed, right, in how people treat each other. But if we start with educating people and sharing stories and, lifting the veil of what has been suppressed for so long, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Well, the headline on your website reads, Empower Change Through Courageous Conversations. Do you find people are uncomfortable when it comes to conversations about race or diversity or, that kind of thing?
Yes, I think some people are. I feel, during the George Floyd time when folks really started to become really enraged, eyes were opening as far as what race relations are in North America. I think a lot of people started to attack people. and, emotions were heightened naturally, but I think in a culture of, you're getting canceled if you say the wrong thing. You're getting canceled if you don't post the right thing. There's so much noise. And so I've always tried to approach conversations as we're here not to be right, but to get it right. That's a Brene Brown quote. And so if we can approach conversations and saying, Lynn, I'm here to understand you and understand how you think and how were you raised, and you're going to try to understand me. We're not against each other. We're trying to understand how we got into this mess. Why do we have systemic racism? Why are we seeing, the stats don't lie as far as certain groups, certain demographics aren't receiving the same care and support versus others, right? But we have to be honest, right? And we have to come from a place of not attack, but of truly trying to genuinely understand each other.
You mentioned being born in Toronto, moving to Mississauga, but now you are in Carrying Place, Quinte West?
But yes, Quinte West, I believe they call it. I co-own a diner with my partner, Joshua Blake. I ultimately was living downtown Toronto, and I was living my best life, my cozy, comfy condo right in the downtown heart of Toronto. And then the pandemic hit, and a lot of us left the city. For me, I ended up finding the love of my life, and he happened to be here in Quinte West. And so I moved out here. And I'll be honest with you, Lynn, initially, I talk a lot in my conversations and the learning and development work I do about bias and preconceived ideas and stereotypes. And being a city girl moving to the county, Lynn, I had some concerns. I had some apprehension. I said, what's going to happen? What are the people going to be like? What's my life going to be like? How is it going to change for me? And I've been so humbled. The people here are very, very kind, very warm. Not to talk back about Toronto, because I love the city that I was born and raised in, but I'm finding people are actually a lot more friendly and warmer here. We have neighbors that check on us if they don't see us taking our usual walk with our dog to make sure we're okay. And, we come home from vacation and our driveway is plowed and, those things. It's been so nice to get to know the people of the Quinte region. And now that we have our business, our diner, it's been so nice to create a hub here in this area, in this region, and really build that community or continue to support the community.
Well, tell me about Josh's Diner, because I noticed there's a lot of dancing going on.
There is, Lynn, and I'm waiting for you to join me. Don't stand me up. I'm waiting. So Joshua he's a wonderful, very talented chef, and he's had quite a few businesses under his belt, not just here in the Quinte region, but throughout the GTA. And so he actually had a food truck called The Real Jerkabago, also in Carrying Place, that was quite popular. It still is. And I remember when I moved here thinking to myself, I need somewhere. It was actually for very selfish reasons. I said, I need somewhere where I can go get good food, where I can get a coffee, where I can meet people. Because again, I had been in the same, in the GTA for all my life and build a solid community, a solid network. So I'm all about community. So for me, it was like, where do we go to build this community? Where do I go to meet people? And so the opportunity met itself. There was an opening for what was a diner, formerly known as Haas's Diner, and I think before that it was a Mason Jar. So we got to get a hold of this place, and now we've been open for just over a year, probably a year and a half now. And we're a diner, so we have your traditional, breakfast, brunch food, but it's with a twist. Joshua's of Jamaican descent. I'm of Ugandan. So we like to add our flair and spice to it. And so you can get things like I said, just a simple breakfast, or we have a chicken and waffle. We have our eggs Benedict, which we call eggs Barrington. We're known for our salad. We're known for our club and our BLTs. We're known for a lot of things, but we're very, very proud of our diner and the success so far and the feedback we've been getting from the community as far as creating this hub for us throughout the year, not just during the tourism season in the summer.
Well, I knew you were interested in community because you've just recently been appointed to the board of the Quinte West Chamber of Commerce. So I realize you're very connected to the community. Let's go back to the beginning of our conversation. This is the 30th anniversary of the designation of Black History Month in Canada. What do you believe is the value of designating such a month?
I think it's important for people to see the breadth and depth of people, and for us to see that, our capability can stretch far and wide, especially for Black folks. I find, for so long we're stuck in this little box of we're really good at entertainment or sports. And I really was intentional about highlighting folks that weren't in entertainment and sports, people that were in law, people that, were business owners, to really showcase that we are so diverse in who we are as a people. And to ultimately see the humanity in people, which is kind of unfortunate that we're in a place where we still need to do that. But I also feel that more now than ever, we really need to tap into the humanity of people, of all of us, regardless of your skin color, regardless of where you're born, what your religion is, just the humanity of us all. And so my hope is that Black history is something that is not reserved for just a month. I always joke in the work that I do in public speaking and facilitation, the month of February, I'm so booked back to back. By the end of February, my voice is gone. And March, I get a little bit because I'm a woman and it's International Women's Day is coming up. But then it's crickets throughout the rest of the year. And for me, I would just hope that, again, we don't reserve Black History Month for just February, because Black history is it's just history. It's Canadian history. And yes, we all have our unique experiences based off of our backgrounds and life. But I would really like us to branch out of it just being reserved for a month, and understanding that, adversity does not discriminate. We all know hardships. We all know that we all have to overcome something. We've all faced challenges, and to get stories and inspiration from different people as a way to keep us moving forward, I think is so important, so crucial. So yes, I love Black History Month. I just would hope that we can appreciate it for all 12 months.
Well, it's been great meeting you today. Thanks so much, Barbara.
It's been my absolute pleasure, Lynn. Thank you so much for this conversation.
I've been speaking with Barbara Yebuga, author of Trailblazers in Canada. To learn more about Barbara, the book, and her work, go to her website, barbarayebuga.com. And her surname is spelled Yebuga.